And welcome to the Writer's Life, place where we get the sight, sound, smells, taste of my particular writer's life, where we get the truth about life. I really need it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Punch, tap, whatever the like button. Punch the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on one single exciting video. Don't forget to pick up Tarantulas at 30,000 feet for a good, really good, fun-filled action piece that'll keep you busy. Excuse me for the hiccups. For an afternoon, and don't forget the blackmailer too, the new Steve Jobs. Some asshole left me like one of those, like, I'm never reading this author, it's junk and whatever. One of those awesome 4-star reviews, or no, one of those awesome 1-star reviews that will actually attract people to the book. Clearly a hater, but we have to deal with them. Every now and then I get one of those. Actually, a team of bots, of hating bots, tried to destroy Everything Burns when it first came out. It was an Amazon editor's pick, and it was a Kindle First selection. It ended up moving like 250,000 copies, right? And just, I remember I was in LA and like, this book sucks. This book is awful. This book is terrible. They just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. So I had to get my agent involved, and then they got involved. And like, at the time, this was 2016 or 17. There's like nothing much we can do about it. But if somebody out there wants to go after your ass, they're going to do it. And I'm not saying the person who had to go out of their way to write a 1-star for The Blackmailer, which is an awesome book, is one of those persons, because it's just one review. Who gives a shit? But there's haters out there that'll go after you and not tell you why they're going after you. They'll just make shit up. So anyway, I'm off topic a little bit. So I haven't been able to come to you too much this week because it's been a week of checkups, tests. They injected me with something today that's making me hiccup, but I feel great. So, whatever. Back to some heavy workouts, all that stuff. Matt Taibbi, one of my favorite journalists, former Rolling Stone journalist, former resident of Russia, former pro basketball player for Mongolia. I think Mongolia. And that's no joke. They just ask him, you want to play basketball for us? Because they're probably all like 4 foot to nothing. What's this thing? Lenovo is recommending something. Can you not do that right now, please? Excuse me for a second. Lenovo was sending me a message right in the middle of my screen. Not now. Although I do love my ThinkPad. This is a good computer, and it's rugged too. Very light. I'll be taking it with me to Italy in February. Excuse me. I'm just full of nice noises today. Hiccups, belching. Might as well get the other one out too. Better out than in. So Matt Taibbi, back to what I was saying when I was so rudely interrupted. Former Rolling Stone. He had the cream job of Rolling Stone. He had Hunter Thompson's job, writing about politics and all that stuff. He literally had Hunter Thompson's coveted job. Hunter Thompson made Rolling Stone, and he did it by writing gonzo journalism via Rolling Stone for the most part, and others, where he interjected himself and some fiction maybe into a real story. Now, I have to admit, I've never read Matt Taibbi's Rolling Stone pieces because I stopped reading Rolling Stone once it went far left. And admittedly, Matt Taibbi will say he did take mostly the far left angle until he didn't. until he started writing. That doesn't mean he was writing um, false stories by any means. And he wasn't even writing gonzo journalism. Only Hunter Thompson could really do that. Tom Wolfe did it in the 60s too, to an extent. Mailer to a slighter extent. Um, but Matt started writing stories that, the powers that be, they started not liking them. And they're like, we don't like that subject because it's telling the truth about what might be considered a more conservative angle. And some of them they would let him write and some of them they wouldn't. And so anyway, Matt saw the writing on the wall. And I don't know whether he's about 52 now, 53, 54, around that age, a little younger than me. But he saw the writing on the wall. And I'm not sure if they let him go or he bowed out. But about 5 years ago or so, that happened. And so he went independent, like so many have done, like Tucker, Megyn Kelly, all these people who are, just powerhouses, right? And he went to Substack. As an aside, does anybody do Medium anymore? I was writing on Medium for a little while, just because I had no freelance journalism jobs at all, and I needed to get that side out of me. So I was writing for Medium for a little while and making like $15 a month. And I stopped. I was like, this is highway robbery. Why should I give these people basically free content? Anyway, but I don't hear about it anymore. Now everything's Substack. So anyway, but Matt's doing very well at Substack, and he entered the scene with a bang when he wrote the Twitter files. And as everyone knows, the Twitter files exposes how all those 3-letter agencies basically infiltrated Twitter and their censors and told them what to censor in the 2020 election, namely Hunter's laptop. They got that the bad list of 51 FBI and social and CIA people like Brennan and I don't know, a bunch of others to sign off on a fake letter that said like, oh, the Hunter laptop story is just Russian plants, Russian disinformation, and and it was anything but. It was the real deal, and when polled, many voters who showed up for Biden in 2020 said they would not have voted for him had they known about this story. But it took a few years for the truth to come out. Fast forward to now, the 2024 election, the numbers just came out on how many Americans actually trust the mainstream media at this point. Oh, and by the way, when the bad 51 signed that letter that Anthony Blinken put together and probably wrote himself, the mainstream media picked up on it immediately, and that was the big headline. That was the October surprise. That's what they were going to use to kill Trump. Now they're using real bullets and lawfare. So whatever. But so now, okay, fast forward to 2024, of course, and the mainstream media is now less popular in Congress. They're about 7% of Americans approve of the mainstream media and actually trust them. Mainstream media is dead, absolutely dead. I don't know why anyone in their right mind would want to write for them. And that includes what's left of the newspapers too, the WAPO, New York Times. All of it is junk. It's garbage. It's fake. But you're still going to get, those people who live in the blue cities, especially, are going to buy their New York Times and, head to their desks way downtown in Battery, Wall Street, and they're still going to do that. Those are people, mostly people around my age, I would say. They're slowly being phased out. But it's funny that Matt Taibbi in his Substack post where he announces this, where he reports on this, says like, you don't need a journalism degree to write journalism, and you really don't. Um, this is how I started writing professionally. I think I was a year out of college, very dissatisfied with my construction job, and I was going to inherit multi-million dollar construction business. That's what I was geared for, right? Or trained for, I guess you could say. Groomed. I wasn't very good at it. I was never good at math. So right there, that should have been a red flag. Like he shouldn't be in the construction business since it relies on engineering, right? In any case, I don't even know how I got the job with the Albany Times Union. Like I started out as a sports stringer for um, the local football games, which that's not an unusual Cub job for a newspaper reporter. But I was like, well, this is what Hemingway did. He started writing for newspapers, then freelanced, and then wrote for magazines, and then wrote a novel. And I figured I would try that path. Excuse me again. Um, I have no idea how I got the job. Like maybe I had written a couple freelance pieces for them, and someone might have mentioned they were looking for stringers. But I was so green at the time that I would go to a Friday night game, get a couple of quotes from some of the players on each team, maybe a couple of quotes from the coaches, um, figure out the angle of my story on the way back into the plant, not knowing that a stringer is just supposed to call his that a stringer is just supposed to call his or her information into the plant for an awaiting reporter to write it. I didn't even know that. No one told me any different. So I drove to the plant and told them I had the story, and the editor, who was the night editor, was like, yeah, there's a free desk there, and here's the login for the computer, and write your story. So I'll never forget it. I wrote my first story, really pleased with myself. It took like an hour and a half. A story, it was probably like a 300-word story, which would now take me like 10 minutes writing it with my left hand while I ate breakfast with my right hand. But I was just a kid. And I filed the story, and the editors I'll never forget it, from across the room, he was a sort of an old curmudgeon guy. And this is back in the day when Harry Rosenfeld was still running the paper. Harry Rosenfeld of All the President's Men fame. And I knew his daughter very well. I went to high school with her. She was very nice. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time at Harry's house. But you didn't know that, Harry, up in heaven. So anyway, the editor's like, so I go to him. I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, look at this opening line. What's wrong with it? And I think the opening line was something like, now this is millions of words ago, millions of published words ago, and I still remember. It was something like East Greenbush lost a heartbreaker tonight. And he says, you know how many papers we sell in East Greenbush as compared to Albany? The game must have been Albany High versus like East Greenbush or something, or Columbia. That's what it was, Columbia High School. He's like, do you know how many papers? We hardly any. He's like, change the line. And he did it for me, actually. He's like, you know, just so like Albany was stressed and not, the Albany team was stressed and not Columbia. And he's like, this is right, this is wrong, do it this way. And he's switching shit up. And he's like, all right, though. He's like, for your first piece. All right. Okay. And we'll see you next week. And I was like, all right. A couple of days later, I get a $50 check in the mail. Boom. I was a professional writer. That's all it took. And I'll never forget that first lesson in writing. I'll never forget it. That's all it took. It didn't, later on, I would go to writing school when I was 29, and that was $40,000, 2 years full time. And luckily, 6 months out of writing school, I struck my first book deal, and as everybody knows, and my my professor at the time, my counselor, I guess they called him, whatever, like he made me do all these edits to the book. And as soon as I was out, I put all that material back in, and then I sold it for $250,000. And I was like, why did I spend all that money on an MFA in writing? Why? People do it because for 2 years they feel like they're real writers. They pay to be a real writer. You know, they write something, they do readings and all that sort of stuff. They can become part of a community, and they have all these visions of grandeur in their head. I'm going to be so famous. And 99.9% of them never write another word when they get out of writing school. They go get a law degree, or they become doctors, stuff like that. And who can blame them? You know, like the money's much better. You might be like, wow, $250,000 book deal. Yeah, but that's going to last you for a long time. And if you don't sell, then you're screwed for like a few years. No one wants to touch you. And that happened to me. But I ended up reselling the book, getting the rights back and reselling the book, and it sold like hundreds of thousands of copies. You never know. You just never know. And that led to another big deal with Thomas and Mercer, and blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. And now I enjoy being both an indie like Matt on the journalism side, only me on the fiction side. And I sign traditional contracts too. Everything has its place. But you got to wonder, with such distrust in the mainstream media. I mean, do you trust anything Joe Scarborough says? One day he's like, this is the best Joe Biden we've ever had. And the next day he's like, he's cognitively declined. He can't run for president. And everybody, the CNNs and the NBCs and the MSNBCs are all saying the same talking points. One day Biden's great. The next day he sucks and he must be replaced. That's what propaganda shills they are for Washington, for DC, for the swamp. Why would anyone trust that with half a brain? Why would you trust that? They're just lying to you right to your face. And in the meantime, they're selling a lot of ads for the pharmaceutical companies. That's what it's all about. Again, I don't give a shit who you vote for. It's none of my business. Vote for whatever your conscience tells you to vote for. Vote for whatever's great for America. Because right now we are on a bad path. But we'll see what happens. But you got to wonder if in the fiction world too, with their censorship boards now and all that, and the DEI and all that, just who is being published by the big boys in the Bertelsmann buildings? Do you need to have a track record of social activism? Do you need to be trans? Do you need to be part of the LGBTQ ABCDEFG community? I don't know. Or can you survive with a major deal writing real hard-boiled fiction like the old days? I'd say probably not. I mean, I can get deals, not as lucrative as they used to be. I think it's a different world now. But do you trust what the mainstream fiction media is puking out at you? Do you trust those books that are on the table in the Barnes and Noble as you walk in the door? I haven't walked through a Barnes and Noble in years. I did a signing there for one of my hardcovers a few years ago, and that was it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you're the type that goes in and scours the shelves and looks for a golden gem. Those still exist. But for the most part, I would not doubt that readers are just gravitating towards independent books, and they don't even realize it, because who really gives a shit who publishes a book you like? Who really cares? We're not as in your face as the mainstream news media is. So in any case, that's all I got to say. A little bit of a ramble on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Tomorrow or next week, things will be back to normal. So I'm going to try to get Troy on Wednesday, give us his finger on the pulse of the publishing business. Maybe we'll talk more about this. Troy's like me. He's a middle of the road guy. I don't believe any writer should be one side or the other. You got to look at both sides fairly. You really do, and that's not happening anymore. So, and the more we do that, maybe call it. I guess now you're like a libertarian or something if you do that. But the more you do that, the more you feel ostracized. Like you don't support the left, you don't support the right. No, I don't support either side. I just, you know, I go with my conscience. If you're a lying sack of shit, I'm gonna see it, and if you're not, I'm gonna see that too. So you can tell I won't be getting into politics anytime soon. All right. I hope you all have a great weekend planned. It's supposed to be beautiful up here, upstate New York. Um, I'm going to be working all weekend to catch up. I have to get Terminal Moonlight. I have to get through that read to give it to Down and Out Books so I can get my contract. And in the meantime, I'm writing the follow up Code Blue Moonlight, which is just going to be a short 50-page novella or long short story, whatever you want to call it. But it's a blast writing it right now. Um, some off the rail stuff happens in it, which and a lot of editors will say never go off the rails. Bullshit. Go off the rails if you want. Go ahead. If it's fun to write, it's going to be fun for other people to read. And that's what you can do in independent world. You can go off the rails. I'll have to do a video about that. All right, you guys. I will talk to you very soon. And ciao, fucking ciao.